I was washing dishes when my daughter walked in trembling. Mom, don't scream. Then she said she loved my husband's best friend's son. My chest went cold. Before I could speak, she held up a plastic bag and whispered, "Test him. I think he's my brother." I turned around slowly. What did you just say? Emma looked toward the hallway before stepping inside. Her hands were buried in the sleeves of her sweatshirt. She had been quiet for days, but this was different. This was fear. Mom, she said, softer this time. Please don't scream. I didn't. I couldn't. Because the second she mentioned my husband's best friend's son, something old and buried shifted inside me. My husband, Patrick, had one person in his life who always made me feel like I was standing outside my own marriage. Deborah. They had known each other since they were children. That was how Patrick always explained it. That one sentence was supposed to end every question. She's basically family. She was there before everyone. You're reading too much into it. I heard those lines so often that eventually I stopped arguing. Deborah was not openly rude. That would have been easier. She was warm, helpful, and polite enough that anyone watching from the outside would have called me insecure for feeling uncomfortable. But she knew too much. Patrick's childhood stories. His habits. His moods before he said a word. She called him when her sink leaked, when her car made a noise, when she felt overwhelmed, when she needed someone to talk to. And Patrick always answered. Every time. When Deborah announced years ago that she wanted to become a single mother, I supported her. She said she used a private donor. She said she was tired of waiting for the right man and wanted a child on her own terms. Then Dylan was born. Patrick cried when he held him. I remember standing in Deborah's living room, watching my husband cradle that baby like the world had narrowed to the little boy in his arms. I told myself it was sweet. Patrick loved kids. Patrick was loyal. Patrick had a big heart. That was what I told myself. But Dylan grew up looking like him. Not vaguely. Not in the harmless way people say kids resemble family friends. Dylan had Patrick's eyes. Patrick's crooked grin. Patrick's way of pausing before answering serious questions. At first, I brushed it off. Then the little things piled up. Dylan had the same allergy Patrick had. The same nervous habit of rubbing his thumb across his knuckles when he was anxious. The same quiet stare when he was trying not to cry. Every time I noticed, I felt ashamed. What kind of wife looks at a child and thinks that? What kind of person turns another woman's son into evidence? So I said nothing. I became very good at swallowing my instincts. As Emma and Dylan got older, they became close. That did not bother me at first. They had grown up around each other. Family dinners, weekend cookouts, movie nights, birthdays. Everyone treated them like cousins, even though nobody ever used the word too seriously. Then something changed. Emma started guarding her phone. Dylan came over when Patrick wasn't home. They whispered in corners and stopped talking when adults entered the room. If Patrick walked in, Emma watched his face instead of looking at Dylan. I thought maybe they had fought. Then I thought maybe they were keeping some normal teenage secret. I never expected my daughter to stand in my kitchen and tell me she had feelings for him. The first time she said it, there was no plastic bag. That came later. That first night, Emma stood across from me and said, "I think I love Dylan." My body went cold. I gripped the edge of the sink. Emma quickly added, "I know it sounds weird because our families are close, but we're not actually related. Everyone acts like we are, but we're not." I wanted to say, "You might be." Instead, I said, "Emma, you need to slow down." Her eyes narrowed. Why? Because this is complicated. That's not an answer. You're both young. You've known each other your whole lives. This can hurt people. She stared at me like she was waiting for the real reason. Then she asked, "Do you think there's something wrong with it?" I hated that question. I hated that my own daughter was asking it. I had no proof. Only years of discomfort, old photographs, strange habits, and a feeling I had spent too long trying to silence. So I said the safest thing I could. "I think you need space from him until you understand what you're feeling." Emma nodded once. Too calmly. Then she went upstairs. When Patrick came home later that night, I was waiting for him in the living room. He dropped his keys into the bowl near the door and gave me the tired half-smile he used when he wanted the evening to stay peaceful. "Hey," he said. "Everything okay?" "No," I said. "Emma just told me she has feelings for Dylan." His face changed. Not like a father hearing uncomfortable teenage news. The color drained from him. His hand tightened on the back of the couch. For 1 second, he looked terrified. Then the mask came down. "What?" he snapped. "She said she thinks she loves him." "That's ridiculous." I agree. They're kids. I know. It's probably nothing. Then why do you look like that? His eyes shot to mine. Like what? Like you're scared. That was the first time he raised his voice. I'm scared because my wife is acting like a teenage crush is a crime scene. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Patrick, look at me. He looked away. Is there anything I need to know about Dylan? He laughed, but it was not real. It was too loud and too sharp. You have got to be kidding me. Answer me. No, he said. There is nothing. But his voice cracked. That crack stayed with me all night. I lay beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to him pretend to sleep. Around 2 in the morning, he got up and went downstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the back door open. Then his low voice on the patio. I could not hear every word, but I heard Deborah's name. And I heard him say, "We have a problem." That was when my suspicion stopped feeling like paranoia. The next morning, Patrick acted normal. He made coffee. He kissed the top of Emma's head before she left for school. He asked if we were out of paper towels. Small things. Normal things. The kind of things people do when they are trying to prove the floor is not cracking underneath them. But I could see the panic in him. He checked his phone constantly. He stepped outside twice before lunch. Every time Emma entered a room, he watched her like she was carrying a lit match. That evening, he cornered her in the hallway. I was folding towels when I heard him say, "You are not seeing Dylan anymore." Emma answered calmly. "You don't get to decide that." "I absolutely do." "No, you don't. He is not good for you. You love Dylan." "That is not the point." "It kind of is." There was a pause. Then Patrick said, lower, "You don't understand what you're doing." Emma's voice changed. "Then explain it." Silence. I walked to the hallway. Patrick turned when he saw me. His face was red, his eyes too bright. "This is your fault," he said. "My fault. You put ideas in her head." Emma looked from him to me. "Mom didn't put anything in my head." Patrick pointed toward her bedroom. "Go upstairs." "I'm 16, not 6. Now." She looked at me again. Not scared. Watching. Then she went upstairs and closed her door. I waited until I heard the latch click before I turned to Patrick. "You need to tell me the truth." He rubbed both hands over his face. "There is no truth." "Then why are you acting like this?" "Because this whole thing is disgusting." The word hung between us. Not inappropriate. Not messy. Disgusting. I said, "Why would you use that word?" He froze. I saw him realize his mistake. Then he recovered. "Because they grew up together," he said. "Because it's uncomfortable. Because people will talk. People talk about everything. This is different." "Why?" He slammed his palm against the wall, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to make me flinch. "Stop interrogating me." That moment did something to me. Not because I thought he would hurt me. Patrick had never been that kind of man. But because I saw how desperate he was to keep me from asking one simple question. "Is Dylan yours?" The next 2 weeks were unbearable. Deborah disappeared. She stopped coming by, stopped texting, stopped answering calls. That alone was strange. Deborah had never respected boundaries before. She treated our house like an extension of her life, and then suddenly she vanished. Patrick barely slept. He drank coffee late at night, snapped over tiny things, and asked where Emma was going even when she only stepped onto the porch. Emma leaned into it. She mentioned Dylan at dinner. She smiled at her phone. She wore one of his hoodies into the kitchen and watched Patrick's face turn gray. I hated every second of it. But I also noticed that Patrick never once said the sentence that would have ended everything. He never said, "This is impossible because Dylan is not my son." Not once. One night, I found him sitting alone at the kitchen table with his phone in front of him. He did not see me at first. His screen lit up with a message from Deborah. I only saw one line. "You have to stop them before someone finds out." Patrick grabbed the phone and turned it face down. My heart started pounding. "What does she mean?" I asked. He stood too quickly, knocking the chair back. "Why are you sneaking around? I live here. You're spying on me." I saw one sentence. "You had no right." I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "No right? In my own kitchen?" He picked up his phone and walked past me. I blocked the hallway. "Patrick. What is going on?" "Move. Tell me. Move. Is Dylan your son?" There it was. The question. Out loud. Patrick stared at me for so long that my knees weakened. Then he said, "You need help." That was worse than denial. Because he didn't say no. The following day, Emma came home from school looking oddly peaceful. Patrick was not home. Deborah was still missing from our lives. The house had that strange late afternoon quiet, with sunlight cutting across the floor and dust hanging in the air. Emma dropped her backpack by the stairs. "Mom," she said, "can you come upstairs?" I turned from the counter. "Why?" "There's something you need to see." My stomach tightened. "Emma, if this is about Dylan." "It is." I followed her up. Every step felt wrong. When she opened her bedroom door, Dylan was inside. He stood immediately. He looked exhausted. His eyes were red, and he held his backpack with both hands like he needed something to steady himself. I took one step back. "No," I said. "Absolutely not. You both know this has gone too far." Emma shut the door behind me. "Mom, listen. No. I am done with the secrets. I am done with the whispering. You two need to understand how serious this is." Dylan reached into his backpack. I stopped talking. He pulled out a plastic bag. Inside was a toothbrush and several strands of hair wrapped in tissue. My mouth went dry. Emma's voice shook. "We're not together." I looked at her. "What?" "We were never together," she said. "We never dated. We made it up." Dylan swallowed. "We needed them to panic." I stared from one to the other. "You what?" Emma wiped under one eye, angry at herself for crying. "We needed to know if they were lying." Dylan held out the bag. My mom's toothbrush. Her hair from her brush. "And I'll give my own sample." I couldn't move. Dylan's voice broke. I heard them talking. My mom and Patrick. I heard him say if you ever found out the truth about me, his life would be over. The room tilted. Emma stepped beside him. "So we made them think the worst possible thing was happening," she said. "We wanted to see if they acted guilty." I whispered Emma. She looked 16 again. Scared. Hurt. Too young to be carrying something this heavy. "Mom," she said, "Dad didn't act like a parent worried about a crush. He acted like a man hiding a secret." Dylan pushed the plastic bag toward me. "I just want to know who I am." That was the moment my life split in two. Before the bag. And after. I sat on Emma's bed because my legs stopped working. The bag was in my lap. Dylan stood near the dresser, staring at the carpet. Emma sat beside me, close but not touching, like she wasn't sure I would let her. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to tell them how reckless they had been. How dangerous. How unfair. But every word died before it reached my mouth. Because I understood why they did it. The adults had failed them. Every adult in this story had either lied, avoided the truth, or made silence more important than the children living inside it. So instead of yelling, I asked, "How long have you suspected?" Dylan rubbed his palms against his jeans. "A while." Emma looked at him. He nodded, letting her speak. Emma said, "People at school joked about it first." I closed my eyes. "What kind of jokes?" "That we looked related," Dylan said quietly. "Same eyes. Same smile. Same expressions." Emma added, "I told them it was weird because our families were close." But then Dylan started noticing things. Dylan looked embarrassed, like the truth was somehow his fault. "My mom never talks about my donor," he said. "If I ask, she changes the subject. She says it doesn't matter because she chose me. But she keeps old photos of Patrick. Not just group pictures. Pictures of him alone." I looked up. "What?" "In a box in her closet. I found them when I was looking for my birth certificate last year. There were photos from when they were young, letters, and one picture of him holding me at the hospital." The way he looked at me. His voice faded. I knew exactly what picture he meant because I had seen that look too. Dylan continued. "Then one night, I heard my mom on the phone with him. She was crying. She said tuition was going up and he needed to help more. He said he couldn't keep moving money around because you were starting to notice. Then he said, if she finds out about Dylan, everything is over." A numb silence filled the room. Emma whispered, "He didn't say if she misunderstands. He said if she finds out." I pressed my fingers against my eyes. For years, I had wondered whether my jealousy made me cruel. Now my daughter and Dylan were handing me the answer. Not jealousy. Instinct. I looked at Dylan. "Why didn't you confront your mother?" "Because she would lie." No hesitation. That broke my heart more than I expected. "What about Patrick?" I asked. Emma's mouth tightened. "Dad would lie too." "Dad." She still called him Dad. Dylan sat on the floor with his back against the wall. "We thought if we told them we knew, they would deny it and make us look crazy. But if they thought Emma and I had feelings for each other, they had to react. They had to stop it." Emma said, "And they did." "They panicked," Dylan added. "My mom screamed at me for being selfish. Patrick came to my house and told me I needed to stay away from Emma." My head snapped up. Patrick went to your house? Dylan nodded. When? Last week. He told me I was confused. That Emma and I were like family. I asked why he cared so much if we weren't related. What did he say? Dylan's eyes filled. He said, because I said so. Something inside me hardened. Patrick had gone behind my back to intimidate a boy who might be his own son. Not to tell the truth. Not to protect Emma honestly. To protect himself. I stood and walked to the window, trying to breathe. Outside, the neighborhood looked ordinary. A delivery truck idled near the curb. A dog barked somewhere down the street. How dare the world look normal? Emma came up behind me. Mom? I turned. Give me 1 hour, I said. For what? To think. Dylan stood quickly. You don't have to do anything. I know this is not your responsibility. That almost made me cry. Maybe he was not my responsibility by blood. Maybe he was not my son. But he was a child standing in my daughter's bedroom asking for the truth while every adult who owed it to him hid behind fear. I looked at him and said, you deserve answers. That night, I did not confront Patrick. For once, I did not give him the chance to lie first. I placed the plastic bag inside a drawer in my closet. Then I sat in the bathroom with the shower running so Patrick wouldn't hear me cry. When I finally came to bed, he was awake. Where were you? He asked. In the bathroom. For that long. I didn't know I had a timer. He sat up. You've been strange. I looked at him in the dark. You think I'm strange? He sighed. I'm tired. I don't want to fight. Neither do I. Then stop digging. I turned toward him fully. Digging for what? He didn't answer. He lay back down and faced the wall. The next morning, I called a testing company from my car in a grocery store parking lot. I asked careful questions. I explained that I wanted an informational relationship test first, not something I planned to use in court. I wanted to know what was possible, which samples were cleanest, and what would need to happen later if the result mattered legally. Dylan willingly gave his own cheek swab. That mattered to me. Emma came with us for support, but she did not touch anything. She sat beside Dylan in the back seat while I followed the instructions exactly, my hands shaking as I sealed the envelope. For Patrick, I used a drinking cup he threw away after dinner. Was it perfect? No. Was it something a court would automatically treat as final proof? No. But I was not trying to win a legal case yet. I was trying to find out if the man sleeping beside me had built our life on a lie. The waiting was worse than any confrontation. Patrick kept spiraling. Deborah kept avoiding me. Emma and Dylan stopped pretending because they had already gotten the reaction they needed. But Patrick didn't know that. He still believed the story. That destroyed the last fragile piece of love I had left for him. He believed his daughter might be walking into an emotionally dangerous situation with a boy he knew could be her half-brother, and he still chose silence. Not truth. Silence. Every morning, he looked Emma in the face and said nothing. Every evening, he sat across from me and lied without speaking. Then the email came. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was alone in the house. Rain tapped against the kitchen window. The notification appeared on my phone. Results available. My hands went numb. I opened the report 3 times because my eyes refused to focus. Then I saw the conclusion. The tested man was highly likely to be Dylan's biological father. Patrick. My husband. Emma's father. Deborah's lifelong best friend. The man who had held my hand through childbirth, paid bills beside me, slept next to me, kissed me good morning, and told me I was imagining things. He was Dylan's father. I did not scream. I did not throw the phone. I just sat on the kitchen floor and stared at the cabinets until the rain stopped. When Patrick came home, I had already printed the report. 3 copies. 1 for him. 1 for me. 1 for the attorney I had not called yet, but already knew I would need. Patrick walked in and put his keys on the counter. You cooked? He asked. I had not cooked. There was no food on the table. Only the folder. He noticed it a second later. What's that? Sit down. His face tightened. I'm not doing this tonight. Sit down, Patrick. Maybe it was my voice. Maybe he finally heard something in me that he could not dismiss. He pulled out the chair and sat across from me. I slid the folder toward him. He did not touch it at first. What is this? Open it. He stared at me. Then he opened it. I watched his eyes move across the page. I watched his mouth part slightly. I watched the blood leave his face. For almost a full minute, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered, How did you get this? Not, that's wrong. Not, this is impossible. Not, you're mistaken. How did you get this? That was his confession. I leaned back. So it's true. He closed the folder. Listen to me. No. It's not what you think. You don't know what I think. He rubbed his forehead hard. I made a mistake a long time ago. A mistake does not turn into a teenage boy. His eyes flashed. Don't say it like that. Like what? Like Dylan is some dirty thing. That made me still. For the first time, he sounded protective of Dylan. Not honest. Not brave. But protective. And it enraged me. You do not get to protect him now, I said. You don't get to hide him for years, lie to me, lie to Emma, let Deborah lie to him, and then act wounded because I said his name. Patrick's shoulders sagged. It wasn't an affair. I stared at him. Do you hear yourself? I'm telling you the truth. Then start. He swallowed. Deborah wanted a baby. She didn't want a stranger involved. She was scared. She said she trusted me. My stomach turned. And you said yes. He looked down. It was supposed to be simple. Simple for who? He had no answer. You made a decision that affected my life before I even knew what was happening, I said. Then you let me marry you without telling me. I thought it would never touch us. But it did. I know. No. You don't. He looked exhausted, but I felt no pity. Not then. You let me think I was crazy, I said. For years. I saw it. I felt it. I asked questions, and you made me feel jealous and petty. I was trying to protect our family. No. You were protecting yourself. His jaw tightened, but he had no argument. Then I asked the question that mattered almost as much as the DNA. How much money? He froze. That told me everything. How much of our money went to Deborah? Please don't do this. How much? She needed help. With what? Bills. Dylan's school things. Her car. Her car. She was struggling. We struggled too. I know. Emma needed braces, and we delayed them. He closed his eyes. We pulled from savings when the roof needed repair. I know. I stopped visiting my sister because you said we needed to be careful. His voice dropped. I know. Every I know made it worse. How much? I asked again. He finally looked up. I don't know the exact total. That sentence did more damage than the DNA report, because it meant there had been so many payments that he could not count them from memory. Patrick reached across the table. I moved my hand away. Don't touch me. He broke then. Not dramatically. Not like in movies. He folded forward, elbows on the table, and started crying into his hands. I didn't want to lose you, he said. You already had me. I was scared. You made us live inside your fear. I thought if enough time passed, it wouldn't matter. I stared at him. That is the most selfish thing you have ever said. He looked at me like I had slapped him. Maybe I had. Good. Does Deborah know I know? I asked. He shook his head. Call her. His head snapped up. What? Call her. Put it on speaker. No. Then I will. I reached for my phone. He panicked. Wait. He dialed with shaking hands. Deborah answered on the second ring. What happened? She said immediately. Not hello. What happened? Patrick looked at me. I pointed to the phone. He swallowed. She knows. There was silence. Then Deborah whispered, What did you do? Not what did we do. What did you do? Patrick closed his eyes. She has a test. Deborah's breathing changed. Fast and shallow. Then her voice hardened. She had no right. I leaned toward the phone. I had every right to know what was happening in my marriage. Deborah went silent. Then she said, You don't understand. I understand enough, I said. And Dylan knows. She made a small sound. He is not your shield anymore. She hung up. Patrick stared at the phone like it might save him. It didn't. I stood. You need to leave tonight. His eyes widened. No. Yes. This is my house too. Tomorrow, my attorney can explain what happens next. But tonight, you are not sleeping beside me. He stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. You're going to destroy everything over one mistake? I looked at the folder. Then at him. One mistake. I said. You made the same choice every day for 16 years. He started crying again. I love you. No, I said. You loved being forgiven before you ever had to confess. Then I walked upstairs and locked my bedroom door. Emma was sitting on the floor outside it. She looked up at me with red eyes. Is it true? I sat beside her. For 1 second, I wanted to protect her with a soft lie. A temporary lie. A lie meant to buy time. But time had been the weapon in our family. So I told her the truth. Yes, I whispered. Dylan is your brother. Emma covered her mouth. Then she leaned into me and cried like a child. And I held her while downstairs, her father packed a bag. The next morning I called Angela. I had never spoken to a divorce attorney before. I barely knew what to say. My voice sounded strange as I explained the DNA test, the hidden payments, Deborah, Dylan, Emma, all of it. Angela did not gasp. She just asked questions. Dates. Accounts. Transfers. Property. Who knew what? Who had access? For the first time in weeks, someone was not trying to make me smaller. She said, the private test tells you what you needed to know emotionally. Now we do this properly. That became the line between chaos and action. Formal testing was arranged through the right channels. Bank statements were pulled. Recurring payments surfaced. Transfers I had never understood suddenly had meaning. I had spent years thinking I was bad with money because Patrick handled most of the details. That was another lie. He had not handled our money. He had hidden it. Deborah's bills had been covered. Her car payments handled more than once. Dylan's school expenses quietly paid. Emergencies solved. Balances cleared. Little pieces of our marriage carved off and delivered to another house. And all of it had been wrapped in words like loyalty, kindness, and responsibility. Words I used to respect. The divorce did not happen quickly, but the marriage had already ended. Patrick tried everything. Apology. Panic. Anger. Guilt. He left voicemails saying I was tearing the family apart. He sent messages saying Emma needed both parents. He begged me not to punish Dylan for adult mistakes. He begged me not to punish him financially because he had only tried to do the right thing. Doing the right thing would have meant telling the truth before a child was born. Doing the right thing would have meant not letting me build a marriage around a secret. Doing the right thing would have meant stopping Emma and Dylan's fake relationship scare by confessing, not by yelling and hiding. The legal process was ugly. There is no clean victory in sitting across from a man you once loved while strangers divide your life into numbers. But when Angela laid out the financial trail, Patrick looked smaller with every page. He did not fight as hard after that. Maybe because he knew. Maybe because the numbers proved what my tears never could. This was not one mistake from the past. It was a system. Deborah tried to call me once. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. I kept it for a while, not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I needed to remember what she sounded like when she was not in control. She said she had been desperate. She said motherhood was lonely. She said Patrick helped because he cared. She said I was lucky because I had a husband all those years and she had no one. No real apology. Just excuses dressed up as pain. I deleted it. Dylan's life changed in one brutal week. Deborah blamed him. Not herself. Not Patrick. Not the lie. Not the years of secrecy. Her son. Dylan called Emma one night from outside his house. His voice was flat in the way people sound when they are too shocked to cry. Emma came into my room holding her phone. Mom, she said, he has nowhere to go. I drove there without thinking. Dylan was sitting on the front steps with 2 bags beside him. His face was blank. That scared me more than tears would have. Deborah opened the door before I could knock. She looked at me like I had stolen something. You must be proud, she said. I looked past her into the house. Get the rest of his things. He made his choice. I stared at her. He is a child. He betrayed me. No, I said. You betrayed him first. She slammed the door. Dylan flinched. That flinch decided it for me. He came home with us that night. Not because it was simple. Not because it looked good. Not because I had some perfect moral answer. He came home with us because a 17-year-old boy was sitting outside with 2 bags after his life had been ripped open, and I could not leave him there. Emma made up the couch for him. I offered him the guest room, but he refused at first. He said he didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. He apologized so many times I finally said, gently, Dylan, stop apologizing for needing a place to sleep. He cried then, quietly, into his hands. Emma sat on the floor across from him, not touching him, just staying close. They had been pretending for weeks. Pretending to be something dangerous. Pretending to force adults into truth. But that night, there was no performance. Just 2 teenagers sitting in the ruins of what their parents had done. Over time, they became what they should have been allowed to be from the beginning. Siblings. Not instantly. Not perfectly. There were awkward days, silent meals, and moments when Emma looked at Dylan's face and saw Patrick. We found counseling for both of them. That was non-negotiable. The fake relationship plan had been clever, but it had also been heavy. Too heavy. They needed help untangling the guilt, anger, confusion, and shame that never should have belonged to them. I needed help too. I did not become peaceful overnight. Some mornings, I woke up furious. Some nights, Old memories replayed through the lens of the truth. Patrick holding Dylan too long as a baby. Deborah smiling at me across birthday cakes. Me apologizing after asking reasonable questions. That last one hurt the most. How many times had I apologized for noticing? The divorce settlement gave me enough to start over. The house was sold. I moved into a smaller place with Emma, and Dylan stayed too, with everything handled properly, because I refused to let his safety depend on secrets again. Patrick hated that. He said I was stealing his son. His son. After years of hiding Dylan, suddenly Dylan was his. He sent messages saying I had taken his marriage, his money, his daughter, and now his child. I answered once. Only once. You lost people when you treated them like secrets. Then I blocked him except for necessary communication about Emma. My family did not all support me. My sister Pamela said I was inviting chaos into my home. My mother Judith cried and asked why I would keep that boy under the same roof as Emma after what they had pretended. I hated that phrase. That boy. As if Dylan were not a person. As if he were only a symbol of Patrick's betrayal. I told my mother, his name is Dylan. She said, you know what people will think. And I said, people thought I was crazy for years. They were wrong then too. But I understand why the situation looks strange from the outside. My daughter and Dylan faked feelings for each other to expose a secret. Then the truth came out that they were half-siblings. Then his mother threw him out, and I took him in. I know people will twist that into something ugly. I know some will say I did it to hurt Patrick. Maybe a small, honest part of me liked knowing Patrick had to live with the consequence of seeing Dylan cared for by the woman he betrayed. I am not going to pretend I am a saint. But revenge is not what made me drive to Deborah's house that night. Revenge did not make me buy Dylan's school supplies when he refused to ask for anything. Revenge did not make me sit outside Emma's door while she cried because her father was not who she thought he was. Revenge did not make me fill out forms, schedule counseling, cook meals nobody wanted to eat, and keep the house calm because the children had already lived through enough adult selfishness. Patrick moved into a small rental. Deborah lost the comfort Patrick had quietly helped maintain. Their untouchable friendship collapsed under the truth. And me? I do not feel victorious. I feel clearer. There is a difference. Some nights, Emma and Dylan sit at the kitchen table doing homework, and for a second, I see what should have happened from the beginning. 2 kids. Safe. Federal annoyed about school. Arguing over who used the last clean mug. Normal things. Small things. Things their parents nearly destroyed. I still don't know if I made the choice everyone else would have made. Maybe some people will think I crossed a line by taking Dylan in. Maybe some people will say Emma deserved distance from him after the fake relationship scare. Maybe some people will say I turned my home into a reminder of Patrick's betrayal. But when I look at Dylan, I do not see Deborah's lies or Patrick's cowardice. I see a boy who asked for the truth and lost his mother for it. And when I look at Emma, I see a girl brave enough to force open a door every adult kept locked. So if that makes me wrong, maybe I am wrong. But at least in my house, no one has to pretend anymore. And after 16 years of lies, that feels like the first honest thing we have ever had.